What an interesting free agent period it's been so far. We've been quarantined. Some have been quarantined in depression, like David Portnoy, but others, well, it's been a successful free agency period for teams like the Bills, teams like maybe the Dolphins. I don't know, but we're here to discuss it. This is the Burton TD podcast. I am Adrian Fedke alongside Brennan Albert and Dominic Fowl. Got the pronunciation right. There it is. So, fellas, free agency, we're quarantined. What are you thinking right now?
Well, this is always fun, Adrian. I mean, obviously, you and me do a lot of work on your station, with the Bitter Birds. So it's kind of cool for us to be able to do a collaboration here, right? For my podcast, for Burton TD, obviously with you and your channel. But we got a lot of things to talk about here. So let's start here, guys. CBA. Dom, I'm going to start with you. Adrian, I'll let you bat second. When you look at the CBA, obviously, we know that this is already finished up. What were some of the big takeaways from you?
The biggest one for me is just the extra game is ludicrous. Like, I'm tired of seeing guys retire early, and I feel like that extra game is going to push a lot of dudes who, unfortunately, a lot of guys we're used to seeing in the playoffs, the Russell Wilsons, those Tom Brady's. He's an outlier, of course, but the guys that are constantly playing postseason games, I feel like it's really going to turn into that straw that broke the camel's back. And I think we're going to see a lot of guys retiring in their primes even more than we have now.
The thing for me is the extra playoff team, because, I remember watching football mid-2000s, and I remember the 2004 playoffs in particular, where you had 8 and 8 teams make the playoffs.
Right.
The 5 seed was an 8 and 8 team, the 6 seed, an 8 and 8 team. And one of those teams actually won. I think the Vikings, they were the 6 seed. They beat the Packers, and they played the Eagles the next week in the divisional round. I don't want to see 7 and 9 teams make the playoffs. I don't want to see 8 and 8 teams make the playoffs. I like how it was done before with the 2 byes. Now you only got 1 bye. I'm not with it. I don't like the extra game either. I just scrap the whole thing, honestly.
Yeah, I don't disagree, fellas. It's funny because the thing I wrote in my notes is kind of like right in between the two of you. Now, if I'm a team, let's say, for example, I'm 2 games out from the 1 seed. Why the hell do I care week 17 if I'm the 2 or the 3 seed? It doesn't matter to me, right? So now we're going to have this week 17 game. To me, I think it's going to be even more meaningless. I think they're saying, it's going to be more revenue generating. I think we're going to see bad football in week 17. And my kind of thought here, fellas, is if that is the case, what
Actually,
my hope
week 18. It would be week 18.
Correct, Adrian. Excuse me, week 18, right? My hope would be use that week 18, send them to Europe, send them to Mexico City, send them to Toronto, send a game that we know is probably not going to be as competitive as weeks 1 through 16, send it abroad, because I don't see that game being as competitive because, again, if I'm that team that's 2 through 6, I don't care where I'm seated because there's no shot at me getting the home field advantage, so I'm just going to mail it in week 18.
There it is.
Now I see an issue with them sending it abroad, though, because I feel like when they play those games in the different altitude, the jet lag and that, the football's already horrendous. I'm sick of seeing the Jags and the Bills play in London or the Jags and the Dolphins. They're never good games. It's either just a straight-up shootout or teams just forget how to play offense, it seems like. And I think that would almost accumulate into a worse game. I think they should have just scrapped the whole thing. I don't like any of it.
It's hard to argue with you there, Dom. I mean, we're all arguing it from a fan perspective. Of course, we're not arguing it from the financial benefit perspective. But, we are a largely Eagles-based fan base. So let's go Philadelphia specific here. What's some of your favorite moves that the Birds made in this offseason so far, guys?
Well, my favorite move is the one that hasn't been made yet, and that's Yannick Ngakoue getting traded to the Eagles. But, let's get serious for a second. Darius Slay, you got a cornerback for the first time since Asante Samuel, essentially, and you finally solidify the cornerback position. If you remember, going back to the 2000s again, you had obviously a seamless transition where you had Troy Vincent and Bobby Taylor. Then you have Lito Shepherd, Sheldon Brown and company, and it's been a decade at least since they've been able to.
Had Nnamdi Asomugha. Remember, he was supposed to be the man.
Yeah, Nnamdi Asomugha. He was another one. So he was a press man corner who tried to play zone. And
that didn't work. People forgot that scheme exists in the NFL, I suppose.
Yeah, it just shows that some players, you really got to fit the scheme, and sometimes, it really does make a difference, especially with the guys that come out in the draft. If you're not in the right scheme, you're not going to do well.
I will echo that Darius Slay 1,000%. I think they got the most underrated corner in football, in my opinion, because he plays in Detroit, and who pays attention to the Lions other than Lions fans? Would they give up a third and a fifth?
Third and fifth.
That is
Yep.
highway robbery. Yeah, I'll take that all day long. Then you get a solid secondary around him. They're set.
I'm not gonna take a swing at the pinata. I think everyone's already hit all the candy out of it. That's the obvious answer here, fellas, right? But I'm gonna go another one. Signing nickel Robbie Coleman a 1-year deal. Why not? I mean, really, like Adrian, as you and me have talked all year on the Bitterbirds, the corner position was something that was very much needing to be addressed long term. So bringing in a guy on a 1-year deal, why not? They obviously haven't done a ton at the receiver position, and that's kind of what I want to segue here. So what is kind of questioning, or what is a questionable move they have or haven't made yet? Adrian, I'll let you go first here.
Yeah, I would have liked to bring in Robbie Anderson, especially seeing him go for $20 million. I am actually okay with them not going after Brashad Perriman. I'm not a Perriman guy. For him to have one good season in Bruce Arians' offense is just not doing it for me, since a lot of guys do it in Bruce Arians' offense. So, because a lot of people in Philly right now, they were pissed. They didn't get Brashad Perriman. There are better receivers out there than Brashad Perriman, like Taylor Gabriel, for example. It's okay, Philly fans.
I would say my questionable move is a bit of a gag, re-signing Nate Sudfeld, because isn't that the dude who stole a ball from a child? Not a fan of that guy. I don't think, but it is Philly, granted, so maybe that's how you guys roll.
We are a little different.
My team. Just saying.
We're a little different. That's fair. I think for me, I'm going to kind of go a similar way as Adrian, just not really addressing the receiver position. I have zero problems, and I actually did like the signing of boosting the defensive line that the Eagles went after here. I think that's totally fine. If you want to continue to invest in the defensive line, that's something Philadelphia has made very clear. But to me, it's like, we're just putting on a extra cherry on top of the ice cream. Like we know the Eagles already have a very good defensive line, frankly. To me, I was like, you know what? I'd rather them use the money at the receiver position. But this tells me clear as day, hey, first rounder, it better be a receiver, Adrian, or we don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah. Can I just say this real quick, though? I think defensive line might be more of a need than people in Philadelphia think. If you remember last year, they lost Chris Long. They lost Michael Bennett. They're about having depth along the defensive line, having that rotation. So you really don't have the depth per se. You have some starting pieces, but they had to blitz a lot last year to get pressure, and that's not what Jim Schwartz wants to do. So it'd be nice to get the defensive line back where you're rushing with 4 and dropping back 7.
That's fair, Adrian. Certainly for what they like to do, it obviously makes a ton of sense for them to go that way. And obviously we saw across the board, injuries across the board was a very large concern for every position, in Philadelphia. For the remaining needs, I'm going to take a first swing at this. It's obvious. It was receivers going into free agency. It's receivers at the end of March. Nothing really been done here. I really have no problem moving on from Nelson Aguilar. I don't think anyone really does realistically. But when you let a receiver go, you were a bad receiver room before, and you lost one. It's not getting better now. Am I wrong here, Dom?
No, absolutely not. Now, who would you like to see them target? Because realistically speaking, at 21, CD, Judy, and most likely Ruggs are gone. Who do you think is going to be available?
Man, we've talked a lot about this, Adrian. I'll let you go first because I know I'm in the minority of my decision here.
Okay, so there's, a couple different scenarios that could happen here. One is the Yannick Ngakoue trade, where you trade a first for him. Now, if you don't trade the first for Yannick Ngakoue, here's what I would suggest Howie Roseman to do. So San Francisco, picking at 13. You don't have a second, you don't have a third, you don't have a fourth, and you want to go get Henry Ruggs, right? Well, you got to go up and trade to go up and get him. So sending something to the San Francisco 49ers, I don't know what that package would be per se, but a package to move up 8 spots so you could go get Henry Ruggs. That's what I think the Eagles should be doing in the draft.
I understand exactly what you said there, Adrian. I really do. I have a hard time. And I look, the top 3 guys Dom rattled off absolutely are worth it, no doubt about it. However, this was a team that we saw last year struggle. Why? Because of lack of depth. and this is an older team in the NFL. So I just have a hard time buying the notion of trading young draft picks or young rookie options potentially, right, for one. And any one of those three guys would absolutely be worth it. So to me, I kind of like the idea of more sitting where we're at. I think Justin Jefferson probably makes the most sense there. But my personal pick would be Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State. I know I'm in the minority here. I know not many people agree. I love him. I really do. And then I would go sign some value guys, right, to kind of fill it out. You want speed? Go ahead. Go sign, Jarius Wright. Go sign Tavon Austin. Go in the shopping bin.
What about the possibility, because I've been hearing rumors that Brandon Cooks is available?
No, I see. I want to get younger at the position, and I want to look at the draft. And Cooks is also somebody who's kind of like injury prone. So not that he's at the end of his career or anything.
No.
How old is he now? Is he like 26, 27?
27, I want to say.
Yeah, so he's not that bad, but I would prefer the draft. Now, to counterpoint what Brendan said, because there is so much depth in this wide receiver class, even if you trade a second-round pick for Henry Ruggs, you can still take a receiver in the third or the fourth.
Yeah, there's still going to be guys available. I'm biased because I'm a Texas fan, but I'm big on, I think, either Duvernay or Colin Johnson has a shot to be a solid receiver in the league. Colin Johnson's 6'7". Just throw it up to him. Throw him and Alshon on the outside. Good luck covering those guys. And I think Duve is a track star if you want some speed.
And that was a guy, Adrian, that we talked about earlier. We talked about some day three guys taking a flyer. Day three guys are all guys who are going to be roles. Both the people Dom just talked about, those receivers that could fill a role on day three. I think that makes a ton of sense here. So I think we're all in agreement. Receiver is still a need to be filled here. But let me ask you this here, Adrian. Knowing what the Eagles have done and also knowing that other teams have done in free agency, how do you think the free agency process has affected the way the Eagles will attack the draft?
Well, I think the free agency process in terms of the wide receivers, I think that Robbie Anderson got a contract so late because of the depth at wide receiver in the draft. So I think that's what we saw with, that position in particular. It seemed like teams wanted to go after defensive line. They were going after those guys.
Big time.
Now I know Jadeveon Clowney still isn't signed, but those were the guys really going off early. And then the offensive linemen, to see those contracts, to see Halapoulivaati Vaitai, Big V, get 5 years, $50 million. It's crazy. Eric Flowers got 3 for $30. These linemen, it's insane.
It is. And Adrian, I think everything you said there is 100%. Here's the way I kind of look at it. I'm not mad at Darius Slay trade. I don't get twisted. It's 100% the move I would have made too. But I still think the Eagles need to go depth over getting a splash move and getting one of the big three receivers. To me personally, I like Brandon Ayuk. I don't like him at 21. I'll be the first to tell you that. So to me, if I'm the Eagles, I actually would trade down. In a perfect scenario, Jordan Love is on the board. He starts to slide. You get a team who maybe wants to trade up. Maybe the Chargers go a different position early, and now they want to trade up. That's a good situation for Philadelphia to trade back. And like you said, Adrian, a lot of depth at receiver. So to me, if I'm the Birds, I think the way the offseason and the trade for Darius Slay losing some draft capital, worthy draft capital, mind you, I think this actually increases the odds the Eagles trade back, not trade up.
I think there's over a 50% chance that they don't pick at 21. Whether they trade the pick to the Jags for Yannick, whether they trade up or trade back, I don't think they stick at 21.
I'm never opposed to trading back. I think getting some more draft capital is normally a good thing, especially if you don't have your guy at 21.
Yeah.
You want Ruggs, either go get him, trade back, or like you said, trade for Yannick. And then also, I remember, Clowney was a big rumor from the Texans to the Eagles. If he hangs around, would you guys like to see the Eagles maybe go get him?
I personally think he's vastly overrated. Yeah. I'm not a big proponent of his, and now I also want Yannick, so I prefer him. So I guess I would just stay away.
I mean, look, here's the way I hear it. If you gave me this option on the table, I can sign one or I can trade for one. Yeah, I'm going to sign the one every single time. So is he maybe a little overrated? Maybe. But look, if he's there, yeah, I mean, if he's there and I can sign him to a 1-year prove-it deal, shit, why not?
Yeah.
But let's kind of flip gears here. This was a weird free agency where we saw the greatest of all time football player leave somewhere where he played at 9 Super Bowls to go to a team that hasn't been in the Super Bowl in almost 20 years here. So let's talk about Brady here. Dom, I want you to go first here. What's your expectations for Brady and the Bucs heading into 2020?
Well, I feel like this is by far the most talented skill position group he's had in quite some time. Not to say he hasn't played with some great ones, because he has. But I just mean top to bottom with the youth and the talent that these guys have, and kind of the option with, you have Bruce Arians, you have the quarterback guru. I have high expectations offensively. But granted, I feel like he just made his life a lot harder, because that division is going to be potentially tough. If Teddy pans out in Carolina and everything goes to plan there, Saints are going to be tough. The Falcons have potential to be really tough. I think that all hinges upon Todd Gurley's knees, because if you get half of what he was, the league is in trouble, because they're going to have a nice shiny toy in Atlanta. But that being said, I think they can get a 10-win season, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're sitting at 9 or 8 wins.
Yeah, for me, if they get to 10, I would consider that a success. If they can make the playoffs in Brady's first year, I would consider it a success. Now, I know last year they were averaging 29 points per game, even with Jameis Winston as the quarterback. So the fact that they're averaging 29 points per game and you bring in Brady now, that offense is going to be lit. It's going to be lit. So you got Godwin and Evans to go with Brady. You're going to limit the turnovers now without Jameis Winston. They're going to be over 30 points a game.
It's incredible. I mean, think about that. Think about Adrian said here, folks. You had 30 points a game, and you had 30 interceptions from your quarterback.
Not to mention the fumbles, too, and a lot of those picks went for touchdowns.
Yes. They're scoring bunches and bunches of points, and they got Jameis Winston as their quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you are literally giving away possessions on offense, and yet you are still able to score 30 points a game. Yeah. It's really impressive. Now, I think here's one thing we always got to remember. He left the easiest division in maybe sports, not even the NFL.
Yeah, definitely in sports. I don't want to hear it by far.
So, you think about this, and I'm just like, okay, so everything's only going to get harder, right, from where you are, and you still have a top 15 pick. They have the 14th overall pick there in the first round, so you figure they could still bolster maybe a tackle, but they definitely don't need any help at skill positions here. So, I don't know, 10 wins, boy, that sounds a little rich to me, but, I mean, I've seen crazier things happen. Let's flip it. Let's flip this. Next year, fill in this blank, fellas. Pats next year will finish blank.
4-12.
Ooh.
I think they tank.
See, I think it all fringes upon, I could definitely see Belichick pulling the trigger on a quarterback, whether it's, I'd love to see Deshaun Watson leave Houston and leave Bill O'Connell. That'd make me so happy. If they make a move for a quarterback, I see them winning no less than 8 games, just because it's the Pats. And like you said, they were in the worst division in sports. Without the quarterback, I wholeheartedly agree. 4 wins, you're tapped out.
Yeah. I mean, if there's a chance they might go after Cam or something. And if they do, then, they'll go win 9-10 games or whatever. But I don't think they win the division next year.
No.
Whatever that is, whoever the quarterback is.
Yeah, I think the bigger question in my mind is, do they even finish second in the division? I don't think they're catching Buffalo. Let's put it that way. I think they are, from a talent perspective, they're in the same situation as Miami. They're in the same situation, maybe not as bad as the Jets. I think Miami got significantly better. So, man, I'm going to go 5 wins. I don't totally disagree. I have a hard time envisioning someone like Bill Belichick tanking. That said, we're talking about the most prepared franchise in sports. So it's hard for me to imagine that Belichick was always unprepared for the life without Brady, unless his preparedness was to literally tank it. And I don't think that's unrealistic, especially, fellas, when you look around the NFL, I don't see any team really going in a tank mode. So, Bill could look around and be like, if no one else is going to do it, fuck it. I have the job security.
He's 67. He ain't getting any younger. And who's going to be the number one pick in the draft next year? Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence.
The next 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, he could stay there till he's 99.
Yep.
Dom, you said something that 95% of the time I would be like, you're a dumbass. When Dom said, oh, well, if Watson got traded, but
Bill O'Brien exists.
Bill O'Brien does exist.
Yes, he does.
This made me want to ask aloud, was the Hopkins trade the most lopsided trade in NFL history?
It's the most lopsided one I can remember. That was when I saw
the only one I can think of worse maybe is the Herschel Walker trade to Dallas, because that set up a dynasty. They got Emmitt Smith out of it, Troy Aikman, everybody. So that would be the only one. That one, and the only other trade that reminded me of this one, LaShawn McCoy for a guy who wears belly shirts, Kiko Alonso.
Yes.
Oh, the Ricky Williams one was pretty bad too on draft day, trading all his picks. Now that's my guy, granted. So to me, that's not lopsided because it's worth it. I love Ricky, but yeah, this one was an all-time oof, big mistake.
But the funny thing is, fellas, like all the trades we just talked about, we all said, okay, the results made them terrible trades. This one was a terrible trade the second it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just so bad. And
then it got worse after guys got released, like Todd Gurley.
Correct. And it made it even worse when Stephon Diggs-Dale came out. And it looked around and you're like, really? You ask anyone in the league would have probably traded 2 firsts for DeAndre Hopkins. Mm-hmm. And they didn't even get 1. Unbelievable.
I don't know how he has a head coaching job, let alone a GM job.
I don't know why he wanted to trade DeAndre Hopkins. I heard a report of a rift, but man,
he claimed that O'Brien didn't like the influence he had over the locker room. Like O'Brien seems like he wants to be the guy.
He's Chip Kelly.
Yeah,
he's Chip Kelly. This is Chip Kelly again. He's going to be the first coach fired in 2020. Guaranteed.
Oh, I hope so. I thought he should have been fired after that comeback, just halftime.
Yeah.
Cut him.
Yeah.
What he did.
Yeah.
Ron can coach the team. We'll figure it out.
Man. It's hard to disagree, Adrian, that he's the first one to go. I mean, the only reason he wouldn't be is because he's his own boss and he's the GM. I mean, that's a really wacky
that's where the owner comes up from the top rope and he's going to give him the Macho Man elbow smash.
What I want people to understand, if you're not a sports fan and somehow you came across our podcast, imagine you owned a business, but then you went into your cash register and just started taking your own money out and spending it for your personal joy. That's what's happening with the Houston Texans.
Yes.
Let's go over to quarterbacks here. Weird situation. I mean, we're in a spot here, fellas, where there's actually a larger supply of quarterback than there are demand of positions, which is something I never thought we would see. So, Dom, to you, of the quarterbacks who moved around, who's going to have the most success at their new landing spot?
Well, the obvious answer is Tom Brady. That being said, I think Teddy Bridgewater is set up for great success. I love Matt Rule. You have the greatest toy in the backfield in Christian McCaffrey. He can literally bail you out of anything. You guys talked about the Robbie Anderson signing. I really liked that. It's weird to me that I feel like the Panthers fumbled Cam Newton for years in not surrounding him with enough weapons, and they immediately get rid of him, get a quintessential game manager in Teddy Bridgewater and say, here's some new shiny toys. But also I think it depends if where Cam and potentially maybe even Andy Dalton sign, if you want to talk about the grass being greener in spots, because there is no grass that's alive in Cincinnati. It's all brown. That's an awful place to play.
I guess I'll go Phillip Rivers here, just to avoid Tom Brady, because that's kind of the obvious answer here. So pairing him with Frank Reich and some stuff that's a really, really good offensive line, by the way. So
great.
Kind of a statue back there. He's a pocket passer, so he'll be protected. I think they can be a wild card team with Phillip Rivers. I think they can go like 10-6 and make the playoffs.
If any of us die and go to purgatory, you will see Phillip Rivers down 6 with 1:20 to play, 80 yards to go, no timeouts left. That is Phillip Rivers' NFL career.
Absolutely.
And I am so happy to see him go from a team who they have never had a good offensive line ever to arguably the best offensive line in the NFL.
Yep.
Let's be honest here, fellas. Not a great division because I'm not a buyer that Tennessee is a repeat. Obviously, Houston has no clue what they're doing. Jacksonville's on the decline as well. Very easy division. And here's what I think about this. Adrian, you and me were talking recently, and I know you loved Steph Curry coming out of Davidson.
Oh, yeah.
And the knock of Steph, right, coming out was, bad shot selection. But we all would justify it by saying, he has to take these shots because his team sucks. Why don't we say the same thing about Phillip Rivers? Why don't we say the same things about he throws so many interceptions because his team is always down and he's pushing to catch up? Like, I think that's a very real kind of thought. A big reason a lot of teams missed on Patrick Mahomes is they said, he's a gunslinger, he takes too many chances. Yeah, he takes too many chances because his defense sucks, and he knows he has to score points. So what happens when we take Phillip Rivers, we put him on a much better offensive line, we put him in a easier division? Man, I think this could be a situation where we could see Phillip Rivers rebound short term, and they maybe are a team that wins 11 games next year.
Yeah.
I wish they would have kept Ebron for him, though, because I know he likes throwing those tight ends. Him and Doyle would have been a nice duo for Rivers.
Whose grass isn't greener, though?
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to answer this by not naming a free agent. Okay. So I'm going to go with Mitchell Trubisky in Chicago because your ass is getting supplanted.
How do you feel?
That's all.
Okay.
So, Nick Foles going to lead the Chicago Bears to a playoff win.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
No, but seriously, the only reason why I say that, the only reason why it might work, Allen Robinson, he's a back shoulder quarterback, and then you got Matt Nagy. So he's probably going to implement the RPOs. You got the Andy Reid connection.
Sure.
And, obviously it worked out with Doug Peterson. So he's a very, very peculiar player to figure out sometimes with Nick, but I compare him to Kurt Warner. You need to be in the right situation for him to succeed. And if they implement the RPOs, if he's allowed to, loft it up to Allen Robinson, I think he can be the starting quarterback in Chicago.
I hope he's getting paid $15 million a year or whatever it is.
Yeah.
This is
the Ryan Tannehill, backup replacement if, Mitchell Trubisky falters. And I think he's going to.
Oh, yeah, he absolutely is. I have given up on him officially.
Let me frame it to you this way, fellas. If we polled Bears fans, who do you think they actually want to win the starting quarterback job?
Nick Foles.
I would assume so, right?
I don't think they like Trubisky.
No, but if you're Bears fans, don't you feel kind of stupid because you could have waited a day or two and said, hey, we could have signed Cam Newton?
Bingo.
Yeah.
Well, apparently they weren't even interested in Cam Newton.
Well, but here's the thing.
Because there was the trade reports, and they preferred Nick Foles to Cam Newton.
And my thing is you can prefer trades until I tell you one of them's for free. That might change the conversation, though, too, of course.
I guess. Yeah, sure.
All right. So, Dom, whose grass isn't greener? The quarterbacks who moved around, whose grass isn't going to be greener?
I have to agree with Nick Foles. Disagree. I don't think Matt Nagy knows how to run an offense while being the head coach. I think he's a phenomenal offensive coordinator. I think when he has almost the same boat as the Bill O'Brien thing, I feel like he has a bit of a power grab and he doesn't quite know where to cling on to and where to let go. I remember the reports of they weren't allowed to have, SportsCenter on in the
TV's on, yep.
That's absurd to me. These are grown men. These aren't college students anymore. They can do essentially as they please. I don't know. I feel like they have a lot of pieces together, and I feel like I watched him fumble that bag big time last year. I don't know. I just see a repeat coming.
This is his third year now, Nagy? Because the first year was good. And I don't know what happened after the first year because, the first year he came onto the scene, I see all these different formations. And I'm like, man, look at you, Mr. Nagy. And then last year happened, and he's right back
on the ball ever.
Yeah.
Boy, I struggled with this one, fellas. I really had a hard time thinking about whose grass isn't going to be greener. with this one, and I'm still not sure I truthfully have a good answer. The only one I can give you is Mr. Carr and the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't think it's ever a good sign when you bring in a quarterback. And the worst news, I think, for Mr. Carr, I still think the Raiders are going to draft a quarterback in this draft too. So that quarterback room is going to be very, very heavy. And look, Gruden didn't make those moves because he wanted these guys to hold clipboards. I mean, this job is 100% up for grabs. I'm not a huge Mariota fan, to be honest with you, but I will also tell you this. You don't make that move unless you want him to win the job down the line.
Yep. And you could see one of those guys getting moved. If they do draft a quarterback, I could see mid-season flip either Mariota or Carr. I think Mariota would be – you know what Carr is in your offense already. I think he needs a change of scenery for sure.
We could very realistically see Carr get moved to the Patriots halfway through the season. I think that's a very realistic type of landing spot, type of trades. Let's go some of our favorite deals. Adrian, across the board. You can go Philadelphia specific, or you can go across the board if you want with some of your favorite deals.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the other trades off the top of my head because the Darius Slay one was really good for the Eagles. What else even happened?
Will Parks. Love that guy.
Which one?
Will Parks. I love that guy. He's from
Will Parks, huh?
West Philly.
Parks
I love
and Recreation.
Play multiple spots. He played pretty well with Denver. I think he just needs a true stud on the outside to kind of take some pressure off of him. I like what he brings to the secondary. I like that pickup.
I think my favorite deal here, fellas, I mean, Gordon going to the Broncos for a relatively inexpensive deal on a 2-year deal at that. I mean, if you told me, hey, it's $13 million, 1-year deal, I'd be like, okay, it's fine. It's a 2 years, $16 million. I was like, wow, that's a really nice move there. So I really like this one a lot. I thought it was pretty damn inexpensive. I'm not saying, Drew Lock is a surefire stud, but you know what? You got to piss or get off the pot. And when you have a young quarterback, flood your offense with a bunch of options. And if he sucks, then when it comes time for that 5th-year option, you know clearly, nope, this isn't it, or this is it. Make no excuses. I love what Denver did there. Go ahead and get Gordon.
Actually, the best deal was the Cardinals getting DeAndre Hopkins.
That's a layup.
That's an easy one.
I'm trying to think of – I couldn't think of other ones.
What'd you guys think of these were signings, but I liked these two just couples together, Sanders and Malcolm Jenkins to the Saints. I know you guys were a little upset. Still your boy. I'm a big fan of both of those guys. I love Malcolm Jenkins. I like that reunion. And then I really liked the Seahawks getting Quentin Dunbar from the Redskins and picking up Greg Olsen too.
Yeah, Adrian, I'll step in. I'll take Seattle. You take Philly. I mean, from the Seahawks standpoint, just getting another vet in the tight end room can only help. Just get more and more options. Getting another option on the defensive side of Dunbar there can't hurt you, obviously, if you're Seattle. I still think the Seahawks free agency hinges on the success of re-signing.
I got a deal for you. The Stephon Diggs to Buffalo deal. That's a good one. Because I think for Josh Allen and that arm, to have a guy that you can't overthrow, I think that's great a get for them. And the Bills are now going to be the new winners of the AFC East.
Yep, which is weird to say.
Yeah. You know what? And that trade, fellas, I thought actually was a fair trade both sides. I thought it was a very even trade on both sides.
It doesn't look even because you put it against the DeAndre Hopkins deal.
Sure.
It was a good get for the Bills.
Give me an under-the-radar one that you don't think people talk enough about that we're going to look back and say, holy crap, they got this guy for what?
Nick Foles.
Sticking with your guns.
Okay. I could ask the question of who would Adrian want to have in a sexual fantasy, and the answer would be who, Adrian?
Nick Foles.
Dom, do you have an under-the-radar free agency signing?
Yeah, I'm a little biased. Well, it's not a signing. It was a trade. But if you want to talk about steals, a 7th-round pick for Jarrell Casey.
Yeah.
He was a flat-out steal, and now you're going to couple him with A.J. Boye, which I thought that was a great trade as well. Mm. And then Denver still has the capacity to re-sign Derek Wolfe. That's a nasty defense if you get those guys all lined up in there.
You know what I liked? The Packers getting Christian Kirksey for cheap. It was like $7 million. They needed some linebacker help.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of ones I was really happy with. I gotta find the numbers really quick here, but the Cleveland Browns went out and they signed Conklin, and that was a big need. There was a big need there for them to figure out the offensive line situation. And I talked about it earlier with Drew Lock, and figuring out like, hey, if you like him, if you like your rookie quarterback when he's on that rookie deal, surround him and make sure you know definitively, hey, is he good or is he bad? And I think Cleveland, they saw obviously a rookie of the year, with Baker, and they saw a really disappointing year. Bringing in Jack Conklin to anchor down the right tackle position, you still have the opportunity to get a left tackle in your first round. I think that was a great move by the Cleveland Browns, and that hurts me as a Baltimore Ravens fan to admit.
I think the Saints getting Emmanuel Sanders, too, is nice to get. So you have Thomas, Sanders, all those weapons on offense now.
And it's hard to argue, of course, hey, who doesn't want more leadership? Adrian, I mean, that's obviously a bummer. I know, Philadelphia fans are crushed that Malcolm went anywhere. But you know what? For him to go to New Orleans, I think, Adrian, even you and your Philadelphia heart of hearts can kind of say, I get it.
No, I get it. I just don't like it.
Fair enough. Let's go biggest surprise move. What move that happened that made your eyebrows hit the Jupiter? Not named DeAndre Hopkins, please.
I was going to say.
Well, I mean, Halapoulivaati Vaitai getting $50 million definitely.
You're just like pronouncing his name, huh?
It's like
I do. I am the king. I am known as the king of pronunciation on Fox Sports The Gambler. So Halapoulivaati Vaitai, Giannis Antetokounmpo, I can do it all.
I love it. Dom, how about you? Was there any moves that made you scratch your head?
I mean, it didn't make me scratch my head. It just kind of came out of nowhere. The Buckner trade to the Colts, because I felt like he was, if anybody on that defensive line was moving, it was going to be Armstead. And him going to the Colts, I think that's their best interior defensive lineman. Yeah. But I will say it didn't make me scratch my head because I think San Francisco has earned the benefit of the doubt when they make moves. They've pretty much hit on every single one they've made so far. And on top of it, you get to move up to 13. Now, granted, I'm not sure what they're going to do with that pick. But, yeah, that one made me scratch my head a little bit, but then it kind of made sense.
That one, I want to kind of springboard on there. If they stick and they want to go offense, Kyle Shanahan's going to say, hey, probably one of the three receivers are going to be there. And, obviously, as we all know, Super Bowl didn't look great for Jimmy, so why not get him another option? I mean, put it this way, fellas, let's not forget. They traded for Emmanuel Sanders halfway through the year because it was a need. Emmanuel Sanders walked out the door. Yep. So that receiver need is still there. If they go on the defensive side of the ball, they could go Javon Kinlaw out of South Carolina, replace the D-tackle position, and get him on a rookie deal. So I love what you mentioned there, Dom. I think it makes a ton of sense from San Francisco. But I'm going to go another one. The Las Vegas Raiders, I want people to realize this, essentially now have the all Monday Night Football team.
Jason Witten.
That one blew me away. Not from the Raiders. Like, if you're the Raiders, okay, cool. You want to keep signing vets. Obviously, you're moving to a city that literally has higher amount of – Dom, you grew up here. What would be the word I'm looking for as someone who grew up in Vegas?
Margin for error.
Thank you. So you bring in a vet. Okay, I get it. But from Jason Witten's perspective, why?
Yeah. Why? I also – remember back in the day with John Gruden, that's what he likes to do is bring in the vets, brings in Jerry Rice, obviously with the Raiders, Rich Gannon, the old quarterback. So that's what Gruden's known for. That's his MO.
That one really was the shocker to me. Let's go over to the impact, though, from free agency. Is there any moves here that you say, oh, this actually is a direct reflection of the draft, or is there any moves that you say, oh, this is actually going to send ripple effects to the draft?
I guess I don't really know how to answer this question because I'm not really sure what you're asking, but I guess the wide receiver position, just going back to that, just teams are going to need wide receivers, and it's a great wide receiver class. And I don't think teams were going after these free agent receivers.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest one that kind of really sent shockwaves in when I was looking at the draft was the Lions moving Slay, because this means they're locked in for Jeffrey Okudah at 3.
Oh, okay. I see what you're trying to say. Okay. Now the question makes sense. I didn't know what you were trying to ask me. I was confused.
That's on me. Yeah, I think because of that move, that locks the Lions in at 3 to draft Jeffrey Okudah, which is a fantastic move. Adrian, me and Dom love Jeffrey Okudah. We talked about him in my previous one. So taking him at 3, I think it makes a ton of sense for Detroit, even if they had Slay. But that's an example of a move in free agency and how it's going to impact the draft.
I would say
for the Patriots
too.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'd say the Chargers claiming that they're sitting pat with Tyrod Taylor kind of shows to me that they're definitely going to draft a quarterback. If that is indeed what they're doing, they're not going to make a move for a vet. Also, I'll give you an under-the-radar one. I don't think this is the case, but partially – part of me believes it. The Redskins trading for Kyle Allen while you have Dwayne Haskins in there. You give a 5th-round pick. Part of me thinks maybe they're not thinking Tua anymore because I've heard those rumors. I wouldn't – to me it doesn't make sense to give up draft capital for 2 quarterbacks in 1 year, considering one, you don't quite know if he can truly play, and the other one, there's just injury concerns.
Yeah, obviously Kyle Allen was somebody that, obviously was starting there in Carolina. So now he comes to Washington to join Rivera. I would guess that he just doesn't like Dwayne Haskins a lot. I don't know if that means he's going to, draft a quarterback, but Chase Young's going to be their number 2.
It's a white take.
Yeah.
So, and what we just said here, fellas, now if you're a Miami Dolphins fan, you're smiling ear to ear. Because let's play this out. Cincinnati, boom. Joe Burrow, done. Chase Young, 2, boom, done. Jeffrey Okudah, 3, boom, done. Dave Gettleman at 4 has never traded down. Think about how wild the statement that he's never traded down in all of his years as a GM. So now year 5 and you're Miami. A month ago we were talking about what's it going to take to trade up. Now you're going to have Tua on the board. Now you're going to have Herbert on the board. And that means, obviously, like you said, Dom, the Chargers, they're sitting there at 6. What I heard them do, what I heard when they said, oh, we're not making a move for a quarterback, what I heard was we like Herbert and we like Tua because we know we're not going to get one of them because Miami's going to get the other unless we move up.
Yeah, and if you're Miami, you're sitting pretty because you get the guy you've wanted all along. And last time I checked, he would be the 6th pick in the draft. Makes substantially less than the 1st. And you get to watch the Giants fumble another draft, unless they draft Isaiah Simmons, which I hope they don't because they will ruin him. But that's another discussion.
Let's kind of make one more segue here, fellas. Overall, teams, who is the biggest winner in the draft so far?
I got to go to the Bills again. To get Stephon Diggs, to get Tom Brady out of the division.
True.
To be the favorites now in the AFC East, I got to look at the Bills.
I got a couple that to me, it kind of depends. I like what the Bucs did. They got, obviously you got Tom Brady, but they just re-signed Ndamukong Suh this morning. They got the sack king Shaq Barrett back. They re-signed JPP. I like what they got. And then underrated, I like what the Chargers did because Phillip Rivers' time was over. You get that contract off the books. You get Chris Harris. You get Trey Turner. If he can stay healthy, that's a Pro Bowl guard. You re-sign Austin Eckler. You sign Brian Beluga, which I loved. You get Linval Joseph. You get a tough run stopper. They re-sign Hunter Henry. And they still have capacity to either draft a quarterback or sign one if they want that.
Hard to argue with anything you just said there, Dom. And I think, from a marketing standpoint, I'm sure the business people are saying, hey, let's go get Cam. Just to sell seats, right? Put Cam's face on all those tickets. It makes a ton of sense. I'm going to go a different way, fellas. If I told you there was a team who added a ton of Pro Bowl experience, everyone would be like, yeah, sign me up. And then if I said, oh, yeah, this team traded their 3rd-string tight end and got a 2nd-round pick, you'd be like, oh, yeah, this sounds awesome. That's the Baltimore Ravens. Making an extension on Calais Campbell, trading a day 3 pick for him, going out and get Michael Brockers on the defensive line as well, and then trading Hayden Hurst, a guy who was a 1st-round pick at 27 years old and got a 2nd-round pick out of him. How the hell are we not going to say the Ravens are a fantastic winner in this position? They now have a 1st, 2 2s, 2 3s. This is a team, Adrian, I said this to you, put this as a team that could go 1 first, maybe a 2nd and a 3rd. make a big move and get one of those 3 receivers.
Now, did they re-sign Judon as well?
They did franchise tag him as well, Dom. So there's
They
another
did lose
trade
Gonda.
component.
That one bites.
That one does bite when you lose when he retires. That's a bummer. But Dom, like you said, they did franchise Judon. This could be another trade component if they want to move up or if they want to keep him. Not a bad person to keep as well. Not everyone can be winners. In fact, many times in life we are losers. Tom, who's the biggest loser so far in this offseason?
Well, the elephant in the room is obviously the Texans because Bill O'Brien still works for them.
Correct.
That's an L in its own right. But I would say the Detroit Lions because they do this since Patricia's been there. They just continue to sign every expatriate possible as if that's going to bring them to a championship. Jamie Collins proved he wasn't good outside of New England when he played in Cleveland. I don't expect anything different. Danny Shelton proved the same thing when he was in Cleveland. And I think they signed Duron Harmon, who I like, but I'm just getting a little hesitant. I don't think Patricia, after hearing Slay and past players talk about him, I don't have faith in him. And also, it's Detroit. Good luck.
And Adrian, who did they sign from the Philadelphia Eagles again? I can't remember his name.
I got nothing. Nothing. I don't remember.
No? Some small letter. I
Really
think it was,
short name.
No. Nothing.
no? Okay.
Nah. I don't remember.
All right. Fair enough. Adrian, who's your biggest loser?
Let's see. I just actually had a team in my head. Now I forget who that team was, so I apologize. Because I didn't want to say the Texans. That's too easy. I guess the Patriots is easy to say because you didn't keep Brady. Because that shocked me. I don't know about you guys, but I just always assumed that he was going to go back to New England.
We did.
Yeah. So
we said that.
you know what? I'm going to go maybe a surprise here. I'm going to say the Dolphins because they have a lot of money, and just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean you should be spending it stupidly. Some of the players that they sign, I just kind of didn't agree with it. Byron Jones, I like Byron Jones. I don't love Byron Jones. I don't think
85 mil, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's worth that much money. So Kyle Van Noy, I mean, like that's the kind of signing that that makes Bill Belichick just shake his head because he got him for basically off the scrap heap. Mm-hmm. So I would say the Dolphins are the loser, even though I kind of like what they're doing, like because I like the coach and I like that they're kind of ascending. They're going to get Tua and all that, but I didn't like what they did this offseason.
What Miami did is they took their brand new paycheck and ran right into the dollar store.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That's exactly what Miami did.
Where you at?
Yeah, we're going to get everybody.
Yeah.
Yes. But
Dude.
I'm gonna stay in the division. I'm going to go to the Jets. The Jets, fellas, they have the second most cap space, and they have been asleep at the wheel. Haven't done anything.
They just let everyone walk.
See, this is an acknowledgement of my part that I didn't do pre-show research because the Jets are the correct answer, and I couldn't think of them.
They haven't done anything, fellas. Let's look at the division. Let's see.
Perriman too. He stinks.
Thank you. And let's make sure we are aware of this. Receiver was a need before free agency. They let their number one receiver go, and the replacement was Brashon Perriman.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Got nothing on that Eagles player. Can't think of him.
Can't think of that.
Can't think of the guy.
No, nothing. Escaping me at the moment.
This is how Philadelphia fans are. Once you're gone, you're completely out of my memory. It's completely forget who you are. Never existed.
I forget about him. Nothing. I forgot about him. He's gone.
Guys, I have hit everything I wanted to cover. Dom, do you have any closing comments you want to add before we wrap tonight?
Well, since I knew I was going to be podcasting with two Philadelphia boys, I hope you guys appreciate I'm wearing my Allen Iverson socks, crossing Tyronn Lue, just for good luck and good aura. No, that's all I had.
All right. I hope Nick Foles wins the NFC North and the Eagles play the Bears in the NFC Championship and the Eagles beat the Bears to go to the Super Bowl. That's my closing thought.
Do you write him like yearly Christmas notes too? Or no?
I write him big love notes.
Oh.
With hearts.
You have one of those
I dot my I's with hearts. That's what I do.
I think the only closing note I would have here, fellas, please, Cam Newton, don't sign. And Jalen Hurts, don't get picked by the Steelers. Please don't, because those just seem like the type of Steelers moves that would happen just when you think they're starting to die and we're not talking about them. They suddenly do something like this and they creep up. Just please don't happen. That's all I ask. Well, guys, we appreciate you listening to another Burt and TD podcast, checking us out in the Bitter Birds. Thanks again, guys, for listening. Take care, guys.